banks were still switching away from manual book of accounts into digital. NEFT RTGS had just come up in place at that time. Having been part of the RBI discussions in the Lopatunga Road office, where they set up the IMPS ecosystem. RTGS, NEFT, IMPS, check truncation products, core banking transformation that we did. Multi-year, multi-country. I was part of the core banking competency center, which was established in Amsterdam, and India was the first to take lead and implement a core banking platform. And of course, we built a lot of different reusable assets that was used by ING, Spain, Italy, Netherlands. And I was very fortunate to be part of the first fintech app. In the software business, you have to refactor code every 3-4 years.
So we understand like you have more than 2.5 decades with leadership role across like the various organizations you have worked with, and can you share some the defining moment or like the wow kind of the moment and the milestone that has shaped up your journey as a technology leader?
Very good. So firstly, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for having me here, Prasad. It's funny when I can't believe it's 25 years that I spent in the industry. Done various roles. Been part of my first job was with a startup company, first generation promoters. I spent about 7 years doing a bunch of roles there, learning the ropes on ops and process and tech and digital and all of that. And that laid the foundation for, understanding where my strengths lay, what are my limitations, what are the roles that I could potentially excel. That was 7 years, when I started in the same company doing a bunch of different roles. But it also gave me an up and close view or a ringside view of how startups are built. And it is actually a pioneer back in the day in the IT-enabled sector. And then by the time I was like employee number 25, and by the time I exited, it was there 10,000 employees worldwide, 3 companies in Americas, one company that they acquired in Southeast Asia. They went public, and so great experience to work in a brick and mortar startup. Like I said, very close to the founders and trying to understand how they build business brick by brick. Then I moved to ING Vysya Bank, which is an MNC bank with the traditional the Vysya community was set up again, 70-year-old legacy. Great opportunity to work in a bank that was just about embracing digital technology or payments, modernizing their assets. So that was about 5 years I worked there. And then we eventually merged with Kotak, and I exited. Then I was with Bharti AXA, which is a joint venture between Bharti and the AXA, which is the French company. Worked there for about 4 years. It was a transformational mandate to transform, ops, modernize technology, bring in customer-centric processes and so forth. Then I had a bit of a startup, bit of a dabbling in the startup world, where I had the opportunity to work on a couple of different ideas. Went on to join a board as an advisor, co-founded, a consulting startup, if you will, based out of Bangalore. So was on the board for a long time, about 4-5 years, and helped the company pivot into a completely different space from where they started. And then I was with RBL Bank, which happened in Bombay, where I was there with them for about 4 years. Again, had joined their tech setup. Very promising bank at the time that I joined. It completely transformed the bank from Ratnakar into RBL as a completely different avatar. They run up about 1 lakh crore of assets. Again, it was a transformational mandate. Was there for about 4 years. Then now I'm with Royal Sundaram, which is part of the Sundaram family. Sundaram, as you know, is a 70-year-old company.
Yeah.
Royal Sundaram is a 24-year-old company. This year is 25 years since we got the license to operate through distributed insurance in India. Again, this is it's a tech role. I'm the CIO there. My mandate is to keep the lights on tech, but at the same time help the company catapult into a transformational roadmap. I'm also responsible for the data assets. So I do three things: I do tech, I do transformation, and I do data as well. So yeah, I guess there's no one defining moment, Prasad. Like I said,
Mhm.
I've just been lucky. Have had the privilege to work in multiple organizations, MNCs, Indian companies with Indian values, serving Indian customers. I guess I've just been fortunate to work with some of the brightest minds, managers and leaders and mentors who've given me the space to operate, giving me, challenging mandates to be able to create meaningful impact for customers.
Mhm. No, I think that's I mean quite impressive journey, and then where you are coming for and like 2.5 decades kind of the experience. It does matter like when you are in CIO role with any company for that matter. So considering from IT delivery you have done at RBL, leading like the digital initiative at Royal Sundaram. What has been like the most challenging or rewarding project you would like to highlight or you have learned out of your earlier experience and which you want to leverage here at Royal Sundar?
Well, several projects. Each project starts with a certain outcome or solves a certain customer problem. I'd say at ING when I had joined, banks were still switching away from manual book of accounts into digital. NEFT RTGS had just come up in place at that time. I remember, having been part of the RBI discussions at the Rupatanga Road office, where they set up the IMPS ecosystem. They had, Sibyl had just come in at that point in time. Digitizing credit reporting for customers to get loans. So yeah, it was actually 2007 to 9, that period where I had the opportunity to build a number of different payments systems for the bank. Whether it was RTGS, NEFT, IMPS, check truncation products. We did a bunch of different transformation and the branch side, it was non-tech, which is implementing, restructuring roles, implementing seamless straight-through operational processes. Then I did a bunch of digital assets, built their website, built their digital banking products, internet banking, mobile banking, WhatsApp banking at that time. Dabbled in a lot of number of different experiments at that time. So those were, I'd say, very critical, projects which had like a bottom line impact
Mm.
for the bank, and also helped the bank's customers to embrace new digital technologies that were coming up at that point in time and make them very seamless and easy to use, simple. So that's as far as the journey with ING is concerned. And of course, also, and I forgot to mention the core banking transformation that we did, multi-year, multi-country. We had set up, ING had set up the retail standards board, and they were investigating, either move into the clinical space or, they were very invested with a company called FIS, Fidelity Investments. FIS had their own core banking platforms. So, I was part of the core banking competency center, which was established in Amsterdam, and India was the first to take lead and implement a core banking platform. And of course, we built a lot of different reusable assets that was used by ING, Spain, Italy, Netherlands. They eventually set up a competency center in Romania. So, yeah, that was that exposure, the global exposure there was quite handy to have. So yeah, so that's ING vice payments, digital assets, working with global communities to be able to build something meaningful that can be reused elsewhere across the globe was it reasonably handy experience to have. When I moved on to Bharti AXA, it was a proper transformation mandate. There was a transformation office that was set up that was outside of ops and IT. In ING, this team was part of the IT structure, so it had its own benefits and advantages. At Bharti AXA, like I said, they wanted a chief transformation officer who could help take the company forward, and they were willing to commit about $25 million of capital, setting aside that kind of money at the joint venture level to be able to build something in India, a mandate that is driven from Paris, executed in Hong Kong. A very different experience, I would say, Prasad, because the country or the operating country's challenges are very different. The way CEOs look at these mandates are very different, and we have our own balance sheet challenges, our own challenges to manage margins. Again, very very different experience, because the thinking, the thought process, the thinking, the mandates are group led, coming from Europe, bit of design and execution happening out of Hong Kong, and then there is the operating company, which is the beneficiary. So slightly different arrangement, but nevertheless the experience was quite amazing as well. So I've worked on a varied sets of projects, and I can't put a finger on one particular project, but I look for how we can use tech and deliver meaningful outcomes to our customers.
Yeah, but it's like when asking mother, which is like you have like multiple kids, and then asking mother like which one is your favorite. So like any successful leader, I mean, I think it becomes really difficult to cherry pick like which was the pet and which was the best. So like it's always a challenge. So I can understand that. So
It's actually the projects that have failed which gives you the maximum amount of learning.
exactly.
Projects, successful projects. Yes, for success you'll have many people taking claims. For projects that bomb,
Hmm.
that is where it's very humbling. I've had many moments where projects, like large bets that we've taken have failed miserably. Then you have a lot of explaining to do, and then there's the whole process of recovery and making sure that the ship is steadied. I think I've had two, three, some very large failures from where the learnings have been just uh, quite significant.
Yeah, and I read it somewhere like saying like if you win in the first go, and then you fail, so people will think like, oh, the first was a fluke. So that's why like at times like that's why it is said like the failure is a milestone for the success. So it is important at times like you should fail in life, because then you will keep changing the methodology and there is always a learning. So and this is a very good point when I think what I can understand. So
Exactly.
yeah, I understand that you co-founded and then advising Singapore-based company ED Tech startup. So how was the experience like to influence and then with that, and then would that really help you in your leadership or innovation, applying those principles elsewhere? So any learning out of that?
See, I'll tell you the backstory for this. After being in the corporate for about, I think, 18 years or so, I I was uh, I was a little uncomfortable because the world around was changing. Lots of fintechs had come in. I think the Global Fintech Festival was my first exposure into the fintech space in Singapore. Fascinating to see, like at a conference of 30,000 people, attending, trying to build something different. And I told myself, okay, so I think it's just time to just go back to a school, learn everything about new age, new tech, emerging tech, and so forth, and see how I can use my experience and consolidate that. And so actually, I moved out. I resigned out of the corporate, moved out of my comfort zone, went back to school. Had an exposure with SP Chain for about 10 months, and I think in 2017-18 is the first time they launched a fintech program in India, and I was part of the first cohort. Um, and very critical or a defining moment in my career where I had the opportunity to go back to go to academics after 18 years in the corporate field. Studying, giving exams, doing orals, making presentations, going to pitching competitions. It's quite humbling, but also the learning at stake was just phenomenal. And it gave me this wonderful exposure into the world of startups in India. And I was very fortunate to be part of the first fintech yatra. As a guy called Abhishan Pant, the cashless man of India. Very strong influencer in the fintech space. Worked with some amazing professors. A guy called Vikram Pandya who ran that program. He put actually is his brainchild on how the fintech program was put together at SPGN. So while I was doing this, and on one side, I got a bit carried away. I said, okay, I'm going to quit my job, go back, raise money, some ideas that I thought was quite exciting. So I was investigating a gig economy that I could, put together on a blockchain and help do some kind of factoring or invoice factoring as a problem that I thought I could solve at scale. There were early backers for the idea. I'd formed a co-founding team. I'd raised a bit of cash. I was trying to work on a proof of concept. It all went too fast, I would say. Maybe also timing the market. When it comes to startups is extremely crucial. We ran into pandemic, and I was like, okay, so that's maybe not the best time to do this. So I wound that down, and then I went back to RBL Bank. But between this time, I had an opportunity to work with a few startup founders based out of Bangalore, where the startup ecosystem is quite vibrant. One of the founders had actually raised cash in the market and was trying to do a food aggregation startup.
Mhm.
I think it went bust when the food pandas of the world came to the force. They pumped in a lot of money. This company was cash strapped, and they wanted a way out. They wanted to pivot into something else. And so I met up with Yuvraj, who's the founder of GetWise, and he said, "Okay, can you help me, move this into a consulting company? Can we do digital consulting for SMEs and help them embrace everything that is happening there? Use digital, public digital goods, data that is available at that time for startups to really leverage on." So I, helped him, pivot the business, and that's where I had the opportunity to work with a businessman based out of Singapore, very successful entrepreneur, and he wanted to enter the payment space. So we had a meeting at a cafe in Bangalore, and he was like, "Okay, I want to pump in money into the payment space. Can you tell me all of everything that's happening in this?" Because he's not even from the industry. He runs I think a manufacturing a business, and he was running a manufacturing and consulting business in Singapore. And I actually dissuaded him from putting any money in the paytech vertical, because it is already crowded, almost fully satiated space. Every use case that you could potentially fathom was already solved. So I told him no point in investing money here. Then he was experimenting something in the ed tech space, so I helped him build that business. Got him signed up with about 10 colleges in Tamil Nadu. MOUs that where he could go and teach people stuff from his own core business. So that was, and then I think it was hard because I've never done sales before in my career. I've always done tech and tech management roles, project management, and PMOs and that kind of stuff. But again, it gave me some exposure into going to the market, playing customer facing roles, experiencing the sales cycle, how to create customer value, how to solve problems, how to work with tech startups and co-create value. So very rewarding experience, I would say. It helped a company also become revenue positive in 6 months that I had consulted for them. So yeah, again, differentiated learning was something that I would always cherish in my career.
Yeah, and that's great to hear. So, as someone who has really has a balance of strategic and operational role, how do you maintain focus on like your long-term vision and while navigating your day-to-day challenges and then maintaining that, striking that balance?
No, this is quite hard, Prasad. I must say there is, while CXO roles are strategic in nature, it is also important to be hands-on, because there will be situations where you're working in a project that's top-down, very highly visible, or high risk, for example, or you're working with a bunch of guys who don't necessarily have had the background experience to execute. I always believe that execution is the sexy. Yeah, idea generation strategy is not sexy anymore. If you can execute something to perfection, um, that is what is more important, right? Uh, so so that's the point. I forgot the question. So you were talking about.
No, no. So I think it was like being a balance,
Oh, so yeah,
strategic and operational role.
that
How do
yeah.
you maintain the
So
focus on
correct,
long-term vision? And then there is a long term and there is a short term, which is like one is like the day to day, like the your run rate, and something which is like the long term kind of. So how you strike
yeah,
the
these CIOs
balance?
need to be able to zoom in and zoom out. Like there will be, like I said, if there is a need for you to get into a ticket or into a query or into a data set, you need to have the ability to do that and get into code, for example.
Hmm.
I've had instances where we've had to roll up our sleeves and get to that in terms of solving that problem. But very critical to establish long-term vision. Very critical to have a sense of what life will be 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, and have a roadmap to be able to get there. And it's not easy. You can get highly distracted with everything that's going around. At Royal Sundaram, when I took over the reins 2 years ago, I had to put this roadmap of where this company needed to go from scratch. So we worked with the likes of McKinsey. We put together a business strategy first. What does 2027 look like? What does 2030 look like?
Mhm.
What are our numbers going to look like? What are our aspirations as a company? Because we've been around for quite a while, one of the earliest licensed private sector companies in the insurance space. And so we first set those targets, right? So we know with clarity, where we want to go, what markets we want to play, what are our shareholder matrices, what should be the speed with which we should get there, how much risk we should take, what is the capital requirements, and so forth. So once that clarity was established, it made my job a little more easier to be able to anticipate what kind of tech is required, what kind of investments in technology is needed, what new capabilities we need to build, what kind of transformation roadmap we need to undertake, what are the areas that we need to be able to disrupt, whether it is ops or claims or underwriting, market selection, distribution, technology modernization, building new digital assets, new ways of working, transforming human capital, which is often very overlooked. So once we set our milestones of where the businesses needed to be driven, or which direction the businesses needed to be driven, then I set out and put together a transformation roadmap. It's very tempting to just stay on the ground, but it's equally important that you have the eye on what's going to happen 3 years from today, and also make sure that you're covering your bases with some kind of a lighthouse to do trend spotting. It's important to also get a sense of what are the potential of new technologies that are coming up. How is that going to impact your businesses? So yeah, I mean, it's actually three things that I do. One is keeping lights on. Second is transformation, and also third is being very aware of what is happening in the market, whether it is tech or new business models or partnerships. Ecosystem players who are actually eating into your own business. You don't even realize. Like credit selling insurance. Who would think like a startup like credit would actually end up selling, or phone pay, for example, they're in the wallet business. Why would they ever distribute insurance, right? You need to be very aware of some of these emerging models. Otherwise you're going to get wiped out sooner than you realize.
Yeah, and I think you made a very valid point, being aware of it, because like the way the industry is moving at the pace, and then you need to be like at par or ahead of the competition to just make sure I mean, your company has edge over in terms of your competitor offering those benefits to your customers. I think being aware and then keeping the pace with the time. Yeah, and that's a very valid point.
Yeah.
So,
See,
uh,
10 years ago, or maybe 12 years ago, let's say, tech was another function that existed in banks, insurance companies, etc. I mean, they were a support functions, let's put it that way. Today, tech has become very prominent. We have a seat on the table. We're very we have an integral role to play in shaping the strategy of the company. We need to understand sales and bottom lines and top lines and ratios and shareholder value and so forth. So I think the role of tech and some of the expectations of tech is also changed quite dramatically,
mm,
unlike what existed, what, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. It's become
uh,
well and central to what businesses
correct,
want to
correct.
do.
And I think it has really given a key differentiator. So it is no longer used as a tech, but using the technology. There are a lot of things like it value adds into your customer experience, and then even your improving the revenue for the companies. It has really played a vital role. So coming to you have spearheaded some initiatives such as like the cloud, and then re-platforming the policy systems, etc. So what are the key drivers it changes, or how did it impact the organization positively or otherwise?
Well, I think quite easily in the software business, you have to refactor code every 3, 4 years, max 5 years. Otherwise, you're gonna not you're gonna be left out with a bunch of legacy code may not work. You're not taking advantage of the latest libraries, especially if you're using open source to code. So that's one part, and you can eyeball and figure, when was the last upgrade to some of your core platforms. Like, in my current role, we have a core platform, which is, like a system of record, but we haven't upgraded it in 10, 12 years. I mean, that's like a big legacy, right? We're behind market by, I don't know, 10 versions or so. So it's important to understand architecturally whether your underlying assets are up to date with the latest and greatest version that it is running, whether it be hardware or software. Pretty much like having a phone, right? I mean, your phone is always on auto upgrade. Like if you don't upgrade your software, you're gonna get outdated. There are some vulnerabilities on the security layer that could get exploited. There are a bunch of disadvantages of not being on the latest and greatest. So that's one thing that to be really aware of on, as a driver. It's critical that whether it's software or hardware, underlying infrastructure, you got to be on the latest and greatest, right? Second, on costs. I'll come to the cost a bit later. I think second important thing is on, does your tech assets have the ability to scale at the same rate with which your business is scaling? Very critical, that you can't. It's important to get that equation right. So you can't be running a business that's growing at 10x the scale, and whereas your tech assets are not growing at that to keep pace, right? So today, for example, we have new emerging models where insurance, for example, is getting embedded into travel categories. Like you can go to make my trip, buy a train ticket on IRCTC, and the PNR and the passengers in that PNR actually are covered under the optional personal accident scheme offered by IRCTC. It is actually an embedded product. Customers are given the choice to enroll or not to enroll, but there's a whole insurance cover that's embedded as part of that journey, right? uh, it might sound so very simple, but there's a lot of underlying mechanics that needs to work like clockwork, right? Like there's an API that needs to trigger. There's a third party underwriting tools that it had to trigger. There's databases that read write ops needs to happen in real time fashion to be able to issue a quote or a policy or a statement, a schedule to consumers. So we recently had the opportunity to work with the IRCTC program. We got empaneled as one of the three insurers offering optional insurance schemes to traveling passengers. We've written about 10, 12 crore lives in 10, 12 months, right? It's a lot of volume. If your tech assets don't scale, if you can't have an API that is designed to provide that kind of throughput, you cannot be in business, right? So second important driver is to understand which are the businesses which require scale, and to be able to optimize and build and design systems that can match that kind of scale, right? And third, of course, is cost. Time and cost. How quickly can you do something, and can you do it cheaper, better, faster? Also important to be cognizant that uh, you know hybrid clouds or public clouds are also going to be expensive. So you need to know how to design your cloud workloads properly. Um, you know, build the rules of the game. Make sure that there is sufficient FinOps mechanisms that you have to make sure that you're getting the optimal value of cloud. So that those are really the three drivers in that order. I would say understanding business scale and matching the speed of tech is one. Getting a hang of your legacy, how much of legacy that you have is another factor, and of course third is time and cost. Can you build solutions that are smarter, that can work optimally for your consumers at the cost and the price point that you want?
Mhm. Yeah. So, I mean, considering like digital transformation, so what does it mean like for you? Because like everyone is like, as a CIO, I mean, you must be leading those digital transformation. So, individually, what it means to you, and then beyond just implementing the technology, and then how do you, I mean, you must be getting the resistance because like many organization, I mean, when you are trying to do a big transformation, so there is a internal, external resistance, like especially when it is a large scale technology transformation. So, what are your thoughts on it?
So I'll answer the second part first. So any transformation means nothing of the old remains, and human beings always resist change, right? And this is true of even you and me, like every day if you're doing a certain thing in so let's say I'm using a certain phone, a certain brand of phone, and let's say I'm hooked onto Android and open source. It's going to be very difficult for me to move into something proprietary, right? Because I'm used to the experience, I'm used to how the technology functions, I'm used to the reliability that the technology gives me. So it's very hard to wean me away from something that I'm used to, right? So this resistance to change is very underestimated. We think that if there is a strategy that's decided in the board, and if it's top down, execution will be like butter, but it's not like butter. People on the ground will find change to be hard. And I've faced this on a number of different occasions. Like, I can give you an example where we were upgrading the core platform from a core banking platform from one technology to another. We were using something called as Power Builder, and it runs on a technology called MUMS, which is antecedent to C. And that's how the code is written, and it is a hierarchical database. And we moved that to a modern, browser-based, smart client. That required a change, because you like branch users on the ground, or the tellers and cashiers, were used to, let's say, tabbing and making entries. Right? And we had to change that into a GUI based interface. The project was all ready. It had taken about 9 months to cook, and we were ready to serve the food on the table. And when we were training people, we realized that there was so much resistance. One part of the bank was unionized, and the union came and said, "Okay, you can't implement this, because you've never taken us into confidence." So what do we do in such situations, right? You know, we almost spent about, in that particular project, I remember spending 2 months, doing multiple meetings with the employees of the union, trying to explain to them the benefit of moving from one tech to another, and how it's going to be easy for their lives. Like literally, we took the top 20 transactions that a cashier and a CCO does at the branch, and said, okay, so this takes 5 minutes, 20 steps. This takes you, 2 minutes and 12 steps, right? And then show them side by side what the value is, right? So critical to, especially when we're doing large changes, Prasad, I think it's important to have an understanding of who are the really impacted stakeholders, and take them into confidence very early into the life cycle. Show them the benefit of why we're doing something, and how it is going to impact their lives on the ground once the project is executed and in steady state. Give them the confidence that you're there to back them up, right? Critical, we do that. We often in because I've worked in MNCs, and I don't, say this in a disrespectful manner, but Indian companies, they don't spend time upfront planning for this change to happen. We are trained to, point, shoot, and then aim, right? So, ये करना है, कर लो,
Mm.
like आज ही करना है मेरे को, right? But then once that is done, and then we realize, okay, अच्छा इसका impact हो गया, हमको पहले सोचने का था, we should have taken
Mm.
those guys into confidence. So a very underrated aspect or approach, but something that I have learned the hard way, and always make sure that organizational change management is very well embedded into our thinking, the way we conceptualize solutions to problems.
Mhm. And I think that's a very valid point. So I think planning like in advance, then when hitting that like the dead end, and then try to really get into the transformation. So like when there is like, I mean, hitting it at like 11th hour moment does not, it needs to be pre-planned and well designed. Like, so these days, as you know, like people are talking about the collaboration we have seen in banking, like the collaboration of the banks and fintech to really offer the edge. So the fintech startups or the regulatory plays like a successful transformation initiative. So what is like your opinion or on the collaboration and then the partnership with the fintech startups, regulator in this journey?
No, good question, Prasad. I think today, full marks to the regulator. They're not just supervising the way the industry is progressing, they're also innovating at scale. They're working with the brightest people, brightest minds in the industry. They're also able to come up with solutions where you can participate as a financial institution. So it's, in the insurance space, you have IIB, which is the Insurance Information Bureau, that basically aggregates data from all insurance companies. The returns that we file, they have a consortium of data that they're in a position to share bilaterally with insurance companies. Be it data that they can use for better underwriting risk, price risk, creating price risk strategies, building my claims book, weeding out frauds. There's a number of different things that I can use data that's available at scale, supervised by regulated entities, that is offered bilaterally to financial institutions to leverage. Your account aggregator model is another good example. A number of different use cases that are today available where companies can, co-create and co-share data to know their customers better, to profile their customers better, and so forth. Right. As far as the fintech and insurtech companies are concerned, again, they have really upped the game in terms of their ability to innovate, use employ technologies to solve real problems on the ground, build straight through processing, make customer life easier. They have a razor sharp focus on customer experience, right? So it's important that incumbent players who are a bit behind the curve, they're able to work in conjunction with the fintechs and the insurtechs of the world, and try and leverage some of these solutions, because the only thing that they lack is, there are two things that these companies lack. One is they don't enjoy public trust because they're not as big a brand as you are, and so that's number one. Second, they don't have a license to operate because it's a regulated industry, and that you need a valid license to operate, and there are entry barriers like huge capital outlay and that, which some of the financial institutions enjoy. But fintechs and insurtech companies are also nimble-footed. They're much faster to market. Like I said, razor sharp focus on customer, and they solve for the full spectrum. Like in the insurance space, they solve not just for policy issuance, but they also solve for claims servicing, midterm corrections, as part of the life cycle, which are very critical, because once you buy the policy needs to be serviced regularly. You could have a change of address, you could have a change of nominee, you could have sold your asset and need an endorsement to be passed. You could be shortchanging your policy. N number of things that you will need, and startups, they solve for some of these straight through processes by building journeys that are easy for the consumers to use. So I've had great experiences working with the startup ecosystem. At RBL Bank, we had a startup club. We were working with about 3,000-4,000 startups. Our executive director, back then, was a big influencer in the fintech space. There were a number of different initiatives under his leadership, which gave us the exposure to work with startups. And in fact, RBL was actually, for the longest time, carrying the moniker of Partner Ka Bank. Right? Just simply for the fact that we had very easy onboarding processes, very easy processes for startups to enroll, subscribe to APIs, work in our sandbox environments. Their invoicing, payments, NDA, legalese processes were much leaner. Like you don't have to go through months waiting to do an MSA, for example, with a startup and a bank. And so when we set up some very lean processes at RBL to be able to leverage that ecosystem. At Royal Sundaram, we have an innovation work stream. It's called the Fintech Founders Forum, and I'm part of the Fintech Founders Forum. It's a very large exercise that we do. We work with VCs, we work with startups, and in a speed dating sort of manner, trying to understand what these guys do, what they offer to the table. And we do the sales pitch internally. So we work with the startups, understand what they do, check if they solve for real problems, and see if there is any fit for use for some of the problems that our businesses are facing. And then we try and do a reverse pitch of the startup to internal teams and try and see if we can get them on board to try and solve issues for us. So it's something that we've started, I think, about a year and a half ago, and we worked with about hundreds of startups from various VC ventures, and I think some of those startups are now beginning to get some real work with us, work with real customers, and solve some real problems for the Sundaram world.
I think that's a good point. So here, like, when coming, as you know, like these days, like the emerging technology, and then most shiny toy, or I would say the talk of the town is like your Gen AI, Agentic AI. So how do you think like this Agentic AI, Gen AI, shaping the insurance industries in next 5 years? Like, what kind of the paradigm shift it will bring in insurance?
It's going to be like a huge paradigm shift. I'd be lying through my teeth if I said, it's just another, buzzword. But this is more than a buzzword, and I've been watching this space for, quite some time. In fact, when the OpenAI Foundation, when it remained not for profit, they had opened up early access to the large language models back in 2018. I remember writing to them. There was a 6 month waiting period. It was almost like writing to a university in the US with a statement of purpose, and telling them why you need early access to the LLMs and what is it that you're trying to build. So I remember writing them an application form and waiting 6 months for an access, and I did eventually get access to it. Um, so the tech is pretty fascinating, to say the least. The foundation models are improving every day, and the cost of token ingestion is also dramatically been driven down with better models, better hardware. So this is for real. In fact, yesterday I delivered a lecture to a bunch of digital marketeers on what Gen AI could do for them. We had people from Google and Meta and Amazon in the room as well. So I don't think there is any CIO today who's not investing in early pilots using Gen AI and solving some real problems. At Royal Sundaram also we have worked, we work with startups. We built some Gen AI chatbots for consumers to play around with. Um, so and it uses ChatGPT. It uses the same models that powers ChatGPT, and quite successful at that. We're rolling out more pilots, agentic pilots now as we speak. Some of them are under wraps, and I can't talk too much about it. But very real, Prasad. This morning, Andrew Ng, who's the co-founder of Google Brain, today announced a new agentic AI model that can replace your OCRs. You can do dynamic ingestion of your PDFs, and it's able to extract 100% of everything that's on that PDF document, which traditional OCRs don't do. Traditional OCRs have a throughput or a success rate, I'd say, is about 70-80%. The OCR models that are very, very mature have 70-80% success rates, some higher. But agentic AI can just change that completely on its head, right? So yeah, I mean, at the moment we are working on use case identification. We are very closely watching the tech. We're very closely watching some of the models that are there, because the models are not just OpenAI right now. You have Claude, you have Mistral, you have Llama from Meta. This number of different models with various parameters. Some billion parameters, some trillion parameters. And the cost models are also very different as we speak. Copilot today charges you $20 per user per month, but that will also likely to change, because the cost per token ingestion is also driving down as we speak. So yeah, our use case identification is on track at the moment. We're closely watching the tech. We plan to socialize the impact of Gen AI to our boards very shortly. Also, to some of our leadership teams and business heads, because this could transform, the very way we look at businesses.
Yeah, man, I agree, man. So considering like, I mean, as everyone is like watching, evaluating, and experiencing some success with this Gen AI and this the hyper automation stuff. So, which do you think like the top five use case, let's say like for a general insurance company, which you think like with the agentic or Gen AI could be, if I may have to give a couple of example, could be like the underwriting or claims processing. But on top of that, which are the use case do you think which will be like key and Gen AI and Agentic AI can play a vital role?
Right. I would definitely think I would have to agree with your assessment. Definitely underwriting, real time, pricing, for example, or real time, tweaking of underwriting rules on the fly is something that is, going to be very easily possible. Today, price changes, for example, I take about a day and a half to do price change. Why does the market have to wait a day and a half to do price change? Why can't it happen in an hour or
Mm,
under 4 hours, which is the business expectation? Very likely and very possible with generative AI capabilities. And so is the case with claims, right? So can I do automated, adjudication of claims? Can I settle claims much faster? Can I do real-time fraud flagging? Can I do real-time payment settlement? Can I do parametric insurance? So, like for example, if I take a insurance, a flight delay parametric product, right?
mm,
I can connect agentic AIs to flight recording systems, and by the time the flight lands, I can compute in real time whether the flight landed within 120 minutes, and does it, and if it has reached that limit, can I trigger a claim, and can I credit the customer $1,000, for example, right?
mm,
So it can instantly gratify some of these parametric situations or
mm,
coverages that I can offer. All of that can be done at scale quite reliably using generative AI. In the digital marketing space is another thing that it will blow up, because what today when you build headless websites, you build for you optimize for the SEO engines, right? The way Google crawls your web assets, and it tries to pull up on and onto the page ranks, etc. All of that is going to change on its head. Google themselves are claiming that it's the last days of SEOs, right? You're going to have to build your digital assets that will be easily read by by a large language model, and so those are some things that you need to be like really wary of and prepared for. In fact, not very. I'd say you need to be prepared for some of these changes that can happen wholesale. Fortunately, today the direct to consumer business, which is the digital business, is about less than 2% of total revenue in the general insurance space. Less than 2% of people come online and buy online. They come online. A lot of people actually come online, but so they research online, they buy offline.
mm,
But that may also change, because people might prefer buying online without the need to go through an intermediary. And as the customer demands shift, or customer preferences shift to online, these models are going to become extremely crucial. So we need to be prepared for how to build assets which can help a large language model navigate and give the kind of results that we want. So I can see these three areas, but it will also help some of the back office processes, whether it is FinOps or the robotic processes that today we have, wherever there is manual reconciliation that is needed, ops servicing that's needed, where generative AI can come, or any generative AI infused solutions can come. And of course, the big cherry on the pie is going to always be your chatbots, customer service agents, agentic AI agents that can do outbound, inbound, that can do collections, that can do payment reminders, that can send you links, that can answer queries on what you're covered for and what you're not, that can give you real time information about your garages or your network hospitals or your nearest branch where you can get your policy serviced. All of that doesn't require too many human beings,
mm.
and these agentic AIs are fully capable and reliable, can operate 24/7. There's no performance appraisal. He's not going to ask for a bonus. It doesn't require recess or free time or LTAs. So all of that is actually going to change, and humans are also going to increasingly place their trust on machines because they know that it's going to be it's going to be easy for them. So yeah, very interesting space. We are open as an organization. We are keen and open to what the industry has to offer, and hopefully there will be value that gets created for both customers as well as insurance companies.
And very valid as you talk about like those I mean chatbots etc. And I think with the knowledge article at the back end, and when instead of the human putting a bot, and that will be like the fastest way to get a response, because for a human to read thousands and hundreds of the page of the document versus with this agentic with the chatbot would really fast track and improve the experience. Very valid point. So considering like so those like organization who are looking to integrate, I mean their AI, generative AI to their operations, while I mean what suggestion like you would like to give them, and then how do they manage the risk and then bias and ethical concern? Like what kind of like the suggestion you would like to give to the organization who was trying to walk on this journey?
Yeah. Well, so while it is easy to get excited about the tech, right? We're also regulated entities. Customers trust us for a reason, and there is policyholder protection that is our fundamental duty that companies have to perform. And there's data privacy, there's DPDP that's now come into effect. I think it's important that we don't get carried away. It's important to experiment, make sure that the models are fully explainable. It's not like a black box where we put something into it and then we start using some of the outcomes without knowing what is the underlying logic or the underlying business rules, which is very critical. So therefore, explainability of the AI models are going to be extremely crucial. Important to watch out for the laws at the moment. Globally, there's no. Well, I think Europe has an AI law, and so does India has an AI framework under Niti Aayog. As it's in its advisory capacity of the government. There's an executive presidential order in the United States on how to encourage the use of AI models, LLMs in particular. So yeah, I think Europe will. China has a law, and that's just the nature of the game. China will make sure that the models conform to their socialist values, and so therefore they will, govern, these models with an iron hand. So important to understand the regulatory climate and what policies and regulatory frameworks that are coming across the globe, and how to make sure that customer data is protected, policyholder interests are protected. So that's the other thing to be very watchful about. So explainability is key. Policy regulations framework, trying to remain within the framework of any AI law is going to be key. Bias is another aspect, Prasad. I think today the deepfakes are so real that you can't make out what's real and what's fake, right? And there's also going to be like bias in the data. I mean, there's numerous examples of companies that are using AI driven strategies in let's say performance management or fraud detection, crime detection, using large data sets. And because human beings are biased, the data sets are also inherently biased. Like the LAPD ran a crime detection thing many years ago. I think it was NYPD or LAPD, one of those police departments. They ran a crime patrolling, or they were simulating crime patrolling using generative AI data set, and then they realized that most of the crime had some kind of affiliation to a black neighborhood or a Hispanic neighborhood, which shows that the data could be biased, right? Like, and that's not always the case, but there is a certain degree of human bias, and then it manifests in the large data sets that we have. A large media house, for example, they set up a promotion campaign, like the way they appraised humans during their performance, and the promotions were decided based on large levels of data sets, and then suddenly they realized very few women were being promoted because of the underlying bias in the data set, right? So important to take cognizance of bias could be real in this in scenarios. So you need to have back testing. You need to have gated controls to make sure that some human being is actually looking at these data sets and make sure that there is no cognitive bias in some of the decisions that we take. So yeah, those were the three things that I think
Yeah.
would be
So I
my
think,
word of
yeah,
advice to
I
organizations.
agree. Yeah, I agree with you. So, like, what are the some practical step insurers can take to experiment with the Gen AI without disrupting their core operations?
Well, I think keep your experiments isolated. If required, set up separate environments, separate landing zones, separate VPCs. Make sure that your production assets are different from the assets there where you're experimenting. But do take a fail fast approach. Experiment as much as you like. Explore all the different technologies that you need to, and make sure that you're back checking the results before you're deploying some of these things at scale, right? Make sure that you have sufficient governance, where some of the results of your pilots or your proof of values are getting monitored. You have sufficient guardrails in place to make sure that you're not using models that are fine-tuned for hallucination, or like I said, just spoke about inherent bias and things of that nature.
So coming to like more of like the leadership and the technology. So as a someone with the history of the optimizing IT governance, I mean, what's your approach to ensure like the accountability and the transparency in the large technology teams? Like,
Well, I think this is an area that I have done a lot of work, specifically in the governance bit at RBL. We set up so let's say like an IT subcommittee, because RBI requires a subcommittee, which is a subcommittee of the board that supervises everything that happens in the tech space. In fact, there is a need for an independent director to be in charge of that subcommittee. So we established, like, I think a three-layer governance structure. There one, of course, the subcommittee was there right up at the top and reporting into the board. There was also an IT steering with the MD of the bank chairing. That meeting happens once every month, almost like a day-long event where business stakeholders are invited and the tech leaders present status of key projects, red flag issues, put their funding demands, put status progress of some of the initiatives of the bank, and then of course you have the operating, some kind of governance at the operating level, both at the supplier end, because you work with, I think at RBL you're working with about 100 suppliers or so. So some of the key suppliers that you're working with, what are how are they performing, to the contracts? Do you have sufficient reward penalty mechanisms? How are you gauging their performances and formal sort of setting and appraising their the value that they bring to the table? And also internally, have your operating IT operating governance in place. So people that are reporting into you, they are responsible, but at the same time there is also accountability at a certain level, and so you have a grounds up view of what's going on. Is the execution happening as per the mandate that you set out to achieve? Are there any red flags? Are there any support requirements? what are some of the risks that they're facing, in terms when it comes to execution. So yeah, important to have this, structured sort of governance, each feeding into each other's. The minutes of the one governance goes to the other, and then goes all the way up to the higher governance. And then there is, reasonably robust action tracking mechanism.
Mm.
So this was at RBL. I think even in Royal Sundaram, I managed to build a very robust, steering governance mechanism right up from the board to an IT steering structure with the top management, partaking, and also some level of governance at the ground.
Mm. So like what kind of like the advice you would like to give it to like the new aspiring CIO? I mean to have like the leading the impactful digital transformation journey.
Well, I think important to understand. You are a CIO of a business first. You're not a CIO in a tech company. CIO of a tech company will have a very differentiated set of KPI, KRA. CIO in a financial institution will have a much different KPI, KRA. I would say for aspiring CIOs, you need to be business first. As a CIO, you need to understand, where is it that you're making money? What are the markets that are giving you highest returns? What are some of the top level matrices? Like in the gen insurance space, you need to know your top line, bottom line. You need to know your return on assets. You need to know your, jib, jab, nick, nap, your return on assets, your, combined operating ratio, your GIRs. So as CIOs, it's important to understand these business metrics very closely. Uh, so I would say CIOs in financial institutions, you need to understand balance sheet as well as you understand your backend systems and architecture, your wiring diagrams and this that. So important that you put the business first, be very understanding of how business is creating value for customers, and then have your internal view of tech, and have sufficient matrices that you can track and manage.
Mhm. As you know, like any industry, whether it is the banks or insurance, like there are two types of the player. Like someone who was like the tech kind of the organization. So like in insurance, like the digital first insure tech players, which are really disrupting the market, versus like they're up against like the traditional insurers like do and so what kind of the advice would you like to give it to like traditional insurance to stay competitive and not to lose the market share against the digital first tech insurance player?
So it's a little bit of a, it's not, there's no straightforward answer, because unlike banking, insurance is also intermediary led, right? I mean, it is intermediated in a large sense of the word. So you're unlikely to see 100% a fully digital company come and wipe out market share. That's not what happens, because your gen insurance is also about retail and corporate, which is like large commercial lines, specialty lines. There's fire risk that we write. There's marine risk that we write. There is liability, director's liability, for example. There is cyber insurance that we write. There is the group medical, GMC, GPA. All of these products in the commercial lines, it requires face-to-face interaction. It requires give and take. There's codes to be shared. There is risks to be understood. There is a level of customization, depending on that business, etc. So in that sense, pure play digital only players will find it hard to take away market share. I mean, some companies have tried it, and with reasonable success, and that's fine. But will we only have like digital only companies ruling the roost? The answer is no. You take life insurance, for example, it requires a lot of advisory aspects that are to be done when there is a human trust, and it's not just purely digital. Would you ever buy an insurance product where the premium is about 1 lakh, where there has been no human interactions and you don't get that comfort of what is it that you're going to get covered for. Highly unlikely, right? You will need your neighborhood agent to sort of come and tell you, sit with you, take your appointment, explain with the brochure what are the products, what are the coverages, what is the servicing, etc. It's like buying a car. You never buy a car online. Like a Mercedes is never bought online, right? You need to get a touch and feel for the car. You need to ensure that there is sufficient after sales service. What are the aftermarket that you want to buy, accessories that you'd like to buy, uh, and so on and so forth. So I think it's far from reality where insurance businesses will become 100% digital. That's not going to happen. Yet at the same time, you need to digitize your processes. So there is a bit of a difference between digital and digitization. So the incumbent players with traditional business approaches need to really digitize their experiences, whether it is I research, I buy, I claim, I service, I renew, which is like what we call as moments of truth in the insurance business. So as long as you have sufficiently digitized some of these processes, then there is value to be created, because no customers want to call your call center and wait in the IVR queue, or nobody wants to walk into the branch because they're all leading busy lives, right? They don't want to come into your branch and raise a ticket and wait for a resolution. That's not something that a customer will want. They will want things on their mobile phone, right? As long as you have, even traditional businesses, even LIC, you have a customer portal. You can log in, download your premium statement, download your tax receipts. If your policies lapsed, you can reactivate, and online. I mean, you don't have to walk into an LIC office to be able to do that. So I think it's important that traditional players also end up digitizing their processes, because that's what's going to be critical.
And as you made a real valid point, when LIC typically, like if you miss like your auto pay kind of the option. So these days, I think they have given something on like the GPay. You enter your policy number and in GPay in 2 minutes, like they. I mean, obviously, when using this technology, when these kind of things are possible. So can you share some memorable story? I know like we are running short of the time. We already exceeded the time. So we can just quickly shorten the questions. So can you share some like the memorable story on how the technology initiative you led directly impacted the customers' lives for their better, or like for the better customer experience or excellence?
Well, many examples, I can give you. In all the organizations that I've worked for, there's always been one stock project that has ended up creating, significant customer impact. Like, I can think of like an internet banking platform that we rolled out to customers, for our corporate customers specifically. When I was in ING, the uptake was, really, overwhelming, in terms of, there was a global transactions unit, which had a need for, customer self-service. So we built out a platform in partnership with Infosys, and the uptake was, phenomenal. Some of the payment systems that we rolled out, RBL Bank, we put a digital banking story together. We built some online platforms for customers to come and sign up and get onboarded with least friction. Again, that uptake was quite phenomenal. The core banking platform transformation that I did. We did a guidewire implementation in Bharti AXA that I was part of, which created significant customer impact. Right, our claim settlement ratios improved dramatically. Our ability to settle claims was 48 hours. It reduced to less than 4 hours. In some cases. So yeah, I mean, I've had moments where so that's the biggest thing. If I were to just summarize my career, right, 25 years, what have you achieved? Uh, wherever projects or which utilizes tech to create this kind of customer impact, those are the moments, or those are the defining moments that's given me the greatest of joy. You build something and then you wait and see if what you build is a some kind of value to customers, and if there is adoption, if there is value that is getting generated, that gives you the highest satisfaction.
So, last couple of questions. So, if you have to write a playbook for the successful digital transformation in insurance, so what would be like the key chapters? Like just a pointer, like
Yeah, if I were to write a book today, I will use a large language model to write the book. But jokes apart, I think my first chapter will be on customer for sure. Just putting the customer first. What are their needs? What are their problems? What are their expectations? That's going to be like number one important to whatever that you do. It's for the customer. Your customer pays your salaries, like our chairman says. AI would be my second chapter, because you can really build AI and leverage that technology and put it right up as central to your operations. Whether you're building workflows or creating rules, or approval mechanisms, and all of that is possible using artificial intelligence. Then your third chapter could be on tech. How do we leverage cloud native technology, using modern components? How can you build reusable assets, reusable tech assets largely? So that would be three. Fourth would be on maybe security, data privacy, something in that space, because that's like going to be like ultra critical. The more and more digital we become, the more risks. There will be more risks potentially in the security space. So how do we build for secure assets and make sure that you're available, you're reliable, yet you're secure, right? So that would be another chapter. The fifth chapter will be on data and how do you monetize data, right? You are the data today, so how
I
can
think
you put data
well covered on this. So let me ask you, like, what keeps you motivated as a technology leader, and especially like in challenging and rapidly changing industries, and there is like always like the pressure which is there on the individual, and then again managing like your a work-life balance, like the personal as well as the professional stuff. So, how do you manage such things?
Well, it's hard, it's hard, but it's important to realize you need to live a life of your own. Like, and I do, and I live a very busy life. Like my work is about 12 hours of the day, and I practically start the day, quite early. But I also have other interests. Like I like to, I spend the entire Saturday just learning or reading up stuff, or I'm on podcasts or on watching something on YouTube. So I always try and put myself in the zone of discomfort. Right. So if you're in a comfortable state, life can go on and nothing's gonna change. If you want to make progress, then you have to keep yourself. You've got to keep putting yourself in some kind of discomfort. So that's what I try and keep doing. Have a curious mindset, have an open mindset, keep learning, and live your life. And I'd love to play my golf. I'd love to play music. When I find the time. I love my racket sports. I love to cycle. I love to hike. So these are things that no matter what, I don't miss. Right? I'm on the spiritual path. I do my yoga. So those are things that you'll never miss, right? Yet at the same time, you are living a busy life doesn't mean you can't take time out and do this kind of stuff, right? There is no work-life balance. There is only life. right? And there are different compartments of life. So second, don't take yourself too seriously, right? Human beings are going to be replaced. That we all know. The sooner you come to that reality, you will start taking your life easily, and have an action for bias. It's critical. I mean, one of the questions that you ask is how do you stay focused on transformation and future. Like we as leaders, we're always solving for tomorrow, right? Your the teams that you build are going to solve for today's problems. Of course, there are going to be days where you need to, like I said, roll up your sleeves and get operational, but that's fine. But your teams need to be empowered. You need to be able to trust and delegate, uh, ferociously. And that's the only way that you can build a little bit of bandwidth to solve for tomorrow. Otherwise, you're going to get sucked into day-to-day operations. So that's I'd like to just keep things simple. I know there are days when I think about my business, like at least once a day. I set aside time very consciously, trying to think about my business. What is it that I can do as a business leader? What are some of the disruptive ideas out there in the market? How is the market progressing? Or how is the industry progressing? How are the other markets progressing? Not just in India. Look at trends in Southeast Asia, look at emerging economies, look at the West, look at some metro markets, and try and see if there's something that you can get inspired. So, number of different things that I do, but I try and keep it very, very simple, and don't take. I just take my role quite lightly.
So
In
I
the sense
like
that
the
I
three,
don't attach
yeah.
too much of importance to what I do.
So I like the three things what you have mentioned. So first thing you said like the compartmentalize the things. And then second, the thing which I liked is yeah, don't take yourself too seriously. Like, and the third thing, what you said, like there is nothing called work-life balance. There is everything is life. So I really liked these three things. Like, so if you have to give a advice to the young aspiring kids who wants to pursue the career in a, so what would be your mantra to them?
To youngsters, stay hungry, stay foolish, stay curious. Life, today everything is changing quite dramatically. AI is capable of doing what entry level professional can do with sufficient guidance and training and all that. So, and we're already seeing that disruption. People with 0 to 3, 0 to 5 years of experience, they're going to find it a little hard because you will have AI that is fully competent of doing those skills, right? So my word of advice to like young people coming out of campuses and colleges is that would be to um, you know uh, build some real people skills, build empathy, build collaboration. These are things that are really going to be very crucial. While the actual tasks and execution will be done supremely well by computers, but computers are built by human beings. It's not going to understand emotions. It's not going to understand exception handling. It's not going to understand collaboration, empathy, design thinking. All of that is going to be like extremely crucial. So while youngsters coming out of campuses need to be fully conversant with algorithms and computers and code and all of that, it's important to build these softer skills. How do you communicate well? How do you talk with clarity? How do you build empathy? How do you commit yourself to goals that are far beyond you, for example? These are going to be like very crucial skills as they build, as young professionals come out of campuses and build careers.
And I think it's a good advice, and I think youngsters should really try to follow this kind of advices what you have given. So I think Deepak, like, thanks a lot, thanks a ton. Like, I mean, we have taken a good 1.5 hour, and I wish, like, I am, though I have skipped some questions, but I would love to continue. But I mean, in the interest of the time, I thought like let me not take too much of your time. But I'll be more than happy to keep in touch with you and then meet you sometime in person. That will be my pleasure.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. Prasad, thank you so much for having me.